There is a date you need to remember, March 30th, 2026. That was the day Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, former governor of Kano, commander of the most disciplined political movement in northern Nigeria, walked onto a stage in Kano and officially joined the ADC. The crowd that day was not symbolic, it was a declaration. For the first time since 2023, the two most organically powered opposition movements in this country, the Obedient movement from the south and the Kwankwasia movement from the north, were standing on the same platform, inside the same party. Within days of that rally, INEC delisted the ADC leadership from its official portal. Not suspended, not queried, not placed under review. Delisted, removed, as if the recognition INEC itself had granted, recognition the Commission had verified, uploaded and sworn an affidavit to confirm had never existed. Now, the mainstream coverage treated this as a legal technicality, a party crisis, business as usual in Nigerian politics. But here is what nobody stopped to ask. Why did the institutional response arrive so precisely, not before the Kano rally, not after weeks of deliberation, but in the immediate window after the opposition's most significant unification moment in 3 years? That question is the thread we are going to pull today, and I want you to hold it, because everything, the party crisis, the coalition, the northern meeting nobody fully explained, and the state-level intimidation that happened just this week, everything connects back to it. Who has the power to decide which opposition parties are legally alive in Nigeria, and who do they answer to? Keep that in your mind. Let's build this properly. Before we go further, if you are new here, this channel exists for one reason: to give Nigerians the political analysis mainstream media is too afraid or too compromised to deliver. Hit subscribe and stay with me. This gets deeper. To understand what is happening right now, you need to go back to December 2025, because the ADC was not Peter Obi's first choice. Before the ADC, there was another plan entirely. The opposition had been quietly building a brand new political party, the All Democratic Alliance, the ADA, a platform designed from the ground up where every entrant would join as a co-equal founder. No pre-existing court cases, no factional baggage, no inherited leadership disputes, a clean slate. INEC denied the ADA registration in December. With that door closed, Obi joined the ADC on December 31st, the last day of the year. And the specific timing, joining only after the ADA option collapsed, tells you that his entry into the ADC was not an enthusiastic first choice. It was a forced landing. Now here is the historical parallel that sharpens this picture. In the period between 2013 and 2015, when the opposition was merging into what would become the APC, there was a sustained campaign of legal and institutional pressure against the new formation. Court cases, INEC administrative hurdles, faction disputes, the same template applied to a different party in a different era. The difference is that in 2015, the opposition survived the pressure and won. What we are watching now is that same template being applied with considerably more precision and speed. The surface narrative being pushed is that the ADC's crisis is an internal party matter, old factions fighting for turf, ambitious men who cannot agree on who leads. The buried narrative is that the crisis became lethal only after a specific event, the moment the Obi-Kwankwaso alliance became real and public in Kano. That sequence is not incidental, it is the story. So let us go through the 4 updates, not as isolated headlines, but as connected moves in a much larger game. The first update is the ADC crisis itself and why INEC's role in it is constitutionally indefensible. The ADC has 3 factions claiming leadership: the David Mark bloc, the Nafiu Bala Gombe bloc, and the Dumebi Kachikwi bloc. On the surface, that looks like typical Nigerian party fragmentation. But go one layer deeper. In July 2025, the ADC held a lawful NEC meeting under the full supervision of INEC. That meeting dissolved the previous National Working Committee and produced a new leadership under David Mark. INEC received the outcome, INEC verified the process, INEC officially uploaded the new leadership to its electronic portal on September 9, 2025. And then INEC, the same commission that had verified, uploaded, and sworn an affidavit confirming this leadership, reversed its own recognition. Rauf Arigbesola, now serving as ADC secretary, put it plainly. He questioned how INEC could accept and document a process and then pretend that process never happened. A legal practitioner who spoke on the matter was equally direct. INEC does not have the constitutional authority to determine who leads a party. Internal party leadership disputes are matters for judicial resolution. What INEC did was act outside its mandate. Now ask the question that the analysis should have been asking since April. If INEC acted outside its mandate and that action happened to coincide precisely with the consolidation of the most threatening opposition coalition Nigeria has seen since 2023, who benefits from that ambiguity? The answer is not complicated. A party in leadership dispute cannot hold a legally recognized primary. A party without recognized leadership cannot field candidates. Candidates without a recognized party cannot appear on the ballot. The chain from INEC's administrative decision to Peter Obi's exclusion from the 2027 election is not long, it is direct. Peter Obi himself said it in an interview on Arise TV. Not with emotion, not with dramatics. He said, "Somebody is pushing this." 4 words. And nobody has sufficiently interrogated who that somebody is. The second update is the OK movement and the critical gap between its momentum and its structural reality. On April 20, 2026, supporters of Peter Obi and Rabiu Kwankwaso launched a new political pressure group in Abuja. They called it the OK movement, and they announced structures across all 36 states and the FT. State coordinators, zonal coordinators, a national publicity secretary. The language was ambitious, a nationwide engine for systemic reform and national rebirth, a rejection of tribalism, regionalism, and religious sentiment. The energy is real. The mathematics behind it are also real, and they are important to understand. After the 2023 election, with Peter Obi still maintains he won, it became analytically clear that no southern opposition candidate can cross the threshold required to win a Nigerian presidential election without a credible, organized inroad into the Muslim North. That inroad cannot be manufactured through goodwill visits and policy speeches. It requires a political structure with boots on the ground in the right states. Kwankwaso is that structure. His Kwankwasia movement has been described as one of the few political forces in Nigeria's north that does not run on rice, meaning it is organically motivated, not transactionally assembled. And on Kwankwaso's side, 2023 was a humbling exercise. Whatever national reach he believed the Kwankwasia commanded outside Kano was not reflected in the election results. He knows that his path to relevance in 2027 runs through Obi's youth base and urban base, the same way Obi's path to competitiveness runs through his Kano machine. They need each other. The alliance makes sense. But, and this is the part the enthusiasm is obscuring, an insider source close to Kwankwaso said publicly this week that Kwankwaso has agreed to serve as Obi's running mate. Kwankwaso's own spokesman said his principal is open to any role that ensures victory. And yet, Kwankwaso has simultaneously resisted any assumption that he will simply accept a subordinate position, insisting the party's rules must govern the process. Those two positions are not compatible. One says the deal is done, the other says the deal is still being negotiated through party rules, and both are coming from the same camp, in the same week. Meanwhile, Atiku Abubakar is also in the ADC. He has made clear he is not stepping aside. He has described this as potentially his final run. The ADC primary, if it happens, will have 3 presidential-sized ambitions in the same room competing for one ticket, inside a party whose leadership INEC has just removed from its portal. The OK movement is building structures for a primary that has not yet been confirmed to legally exist. That is the gap between the momentum and the reality. The third update is the one that has received the least analysis, and it may be the most consequential. On April 25, 2026, Peter Obi flew to Bauchi. He met Governor Bala Mohammed in a closed-door session at the Presidential Lounge of the Government House. An ADC Southeast delegation was with him. Sources close to the meeting said the conversation was focused on the political ecosystem ahead of 2027 and the challenges facing the polity. After the meeting, a statement from Mohammed's side simply said, "We are ready to work with Peter Obi politically to ensure the birth of a new Nigeria." Now, who is Bala Mohammed? He is the sitting governor of Bauchi State. He is the current chairman of the PDP Governors Forum. He has been in sustained public conflict with FTC Minister Nyesom Wike, and that conflict has reached the point where multiple reports now suggest Mohammed is preparing to exit the PDP. His preferred destination, according to those reports, is the ADC. Now, if that happens, it is not a symbolic defection. A sitting PDP governor, the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, moving into Peter Obi's coalition would represent the most significant crack in the PDP's northern infrastructure since the 2014-2015 defections that built the APC. It would also bring Bauchi's state structure, its network of local government machinery, and Mohammed's credibility with the League of Northern Democrats into the opposition's column. Notice what Mohammed has not done. He has not endorsed Peter Obi. He has not announced a party exit. He has not given a press conference with a timeline. He met, he said, "We are ready to work politically," and he went quiet. In Nigerian politics, that kind of silence from a governor of his weight is not absence of action, it is the action. He is positioning, he is waiting to see how the ADC legal crisis resolves before committing. And the fact that Obi flew to him, not the other way around, tells you who is seeking alignment and who is being courted. Watch Bala Mohammed. His next public statement on party affiliation will be one of the most important data points in Nigeria's 2027 story. The fourth update is the most visceral, and it tells you something that the language of coalition building and legal strategy cannot fully capture. On April 25, 2026, a video went viral across Nigerian social media. In it, Agogo the town crier, an aide to Governor Monday Okpepolo of Edo State, can be heard telling the Edo State Commissioner of Police that he would hand over any ADC member found operating in the state. And he also referred to Peter Obi using language I will not repeat here, but that was unmistakably contemptuous. In the video, the Commissioner of Police is visible. He is smiling. The Edo State Police Command issued a statement saying the commissioner never agreed with, supported, or endorsed what was said, and described the comments as possible comedy and showmanship. The classification of a direct threat against members of a legally registered political party delivered in the presence of the state's highest-ranking police officer as comedy is itself a statement. This is not about the insult to Peter Obi. What the video reveals is something more structural. At the state level, in a key swing state in the South-South, the ruling party's foot soldiers are already treating the ADC not as a political competitor to be out-campaigned, but as a security concern to be suppressed. And the police response, or more precisely the absence of one, tells you what the default posture of law enforcement will be toward opposition organizing in that state as 2027 approaches. Edo State matters. It's a bellwether state. It has historically tracked with national political sentiment more closely than most. If the political environment in Edo State is already hostile to ADC presence before a single campaign poster has been printed, that's an early indicator of what opposition organizing is going to look like on the ground across multiple states in 2027.
Now, let us talk about what this actually means for Nigeria, beyond the horse race politics of who is running with whom. If the institutional attrition strategy succeeds, if every opposition platform that reaches critical mass is dismantled through legal challenges, INEC administrative reversals, and state-level suppression before it can field candidates, Nigeria will have established a precedent that does not expire with any single administration. The tool that a sitting government used to remove a competitor from the ballot becomes available to every subsequent government. The precedent is the danger, not just the outcome. On the economy, Peter Obi has consistently been the only opposition figure making specific comparative economic arguments. He pointed out that Nigeria's GDP has declined from $500 billion to $200 billion under Tinubu's tenure, while Indonesia, a comparable economy inaugurated the same day, has grown from $800 billion to $1.3 trillion. He flagged the 8 trillion naira debt cancellation for NNPC as financial irresponsibility. He has been doing the work of economic accountability that an opposition is supposed to do. If his platform is legally neutralized, that accountability voice doesn't get replaced by another one. It disappears, and Nigerians lose the pressure mechanism that forces any government to defend its economic choices in public. On security, Obi's argument for the North is that investment in agriculture, education, and healthcare is the structural solution to the region's instability. That's not a novel argument. It's the argument that development economists have been making for 20 decades. The fact that it requires saying in 2026 tells you how far policy debate has regressed. And now, the INEC chairman question I raised at the start of this analysis. Professor Joash Amupitan. His authority over party recognition is constitutionally constrained. Legal experts have confirmed that legal disputes around party leadership are for the courts, not for INEC. And yet, INEC moved, and the ADC Youth Wing issued a 72-hour ultimatum for his resignation, and the commission has remained silent. What that silence means is this: INEC is calculating that the institutional cost of holding its position is lower than the political cost of reversing it. That calculation only holds if no one with sufficient authority forces a reckoning. And the question of who has that authority, who can compel INEC to reverse an unconstitutional administrative act, runs directly back to the judiciary. The same judiciary that has been described repeatedly and with documented evidence as being used as a tool of attrition against the same opposition it would need to rescue. Now, let me present the other side of this argument fairly, because intellectual honesty requires it. The strongest case against the narrative I've been building goes like this. Peter Obi is a serial platform switcher. PDP 2019, Labour Party 2022, ADC in December 2025, possibly a fourth party by May 2026. That pattern, the argument goes, reflects not persecution, but a politician who is temperamentally unable to build durable institutions, someone who prefers fresh starts over the hard work of fixing what already exists. If the ADC is in crisis, part of that crisis predates Obi's arrival, and Kwankwaso, for all the enthusiasm around the OK movement, failed to convert his Kano dominance into national votes in 2023. The same structural weaknesses that collapsed the 2022 Obi-Kwankwaso talks, competing presidential ambitions, no agreed framework for who leads, are still unresolved.
These are legitimate observations, and they deserve a direct response. On the party switching, every platform Obi has left has been destabilized by the same mechanism: internal leadership crises, court-assisted factionalism, INEC recognition disputes. The Labour Party's crisis is now resolved in favor of Senator Nadi Usman's faction, and even she has said that Obi's window to return has legally closed. If the pattern of platform destruction follows a politician across three parties, the question is not why the politician keeps leaving. The question is what force keeps following him into each new home. On the 2023 alliance collapse, yes, Obi and Kwankwaso failed to unite in 2022 because of ego and ticket order disputes. But consider what changed between then and now. INEC itself had verified and then reversed ADC recognition.
The ADA was denied registration. The Labour Party has been legally neutralized as an Obi vehicle. The pressure that concentrated both men onto the same platform is categorically different from 2022. Necessity has a way of resolving ego disputes that goodwill cannot. And the most common misconception I want to correct directly: many Nigerians are watching this as a story about Peter Obi, his ambition, his obedient supporters, his party choices. It is not. The through line of this story is the systematic weakening of competitive electoral infrastructure. Obi is the most visible target because he is the most organized threat, but the mechanism being used does not care about his name. It cares about the threat. And the threat in this case is a unified cross-regional opposition that Aso Rock cannot co-opt, cannot buy, and cannot split through traditional patronage channels. Now, if what I just told you surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know what you think before we get to the part that changes everything. 3 moves. Watch these in the coming weeks. First, watch for a Supreme Court filing on the ADC leadership dispute. The Labour Party crisis lasted years because it was deliberately drawn into the Supreme Court timeline. If the ADC dispute reaches that level, the practical effect is that the party cannot hold legally binding primaries until the court rules, and courts in Nigeria set their own timelines. A filing in May could mean a ruling in late 2026 at the earliest. That would leave Peter Obi with no platform and no time. Second, watch for Obi's platform decision by the end of April. Reports suggest he may exit the ADC and declare for a new party in early May, in line with INEC's electoral timetable. If he does, the immediate question is this new party already INEC registered? Because the ADA was denied registration. A third consecutive platform crisis would not just damage Obi's credibility, it would functionally end his 2027 campaign without a single vote being cast against him.
Third, watch Bala Mohammed's next public statement on his party affiliation. His Bauchi meeting with Obi was 3 days ago. The silence since then is deliberate. If he moves into the opposition coalition in the next 2 to 4 weeks, it changes the resource and legitimacy calculus in ways that no amount of INEC administrative pressure can easily reverse. And there is one more variable that has been operating quietly in the background: former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Multiple sources have placed him as an active behind-the-scenes broker in the opposition realignment, including reports that he encouraged Kwankwaso to accept the vice presidential slot. Obasanjo has done this before. In 2015, his public letter withdrawing support from Jonathan was a signal, not just a statement. When he moves with institutional weight. Track where he appears publicly in May. Now, the question I opened with: who has the power to decide which opposition parties are legally alive? The courts have jurisdiction in theory, but courts are being used for attrition, not resolution. The party members have constitutional standing, but their conventions are being selectively delegitimized. INEC has administrative discretion, and INEC's chairman is appointed through a Senate confirmation process that runs through an APC-controlled chamber. The chain of authority is not complicated once you draw it out, and Peter Obi drew one end of it on live television when he said 4 words: somebody is pushing this. The question was never who. The question was always whether Nigerians would connect the institutional chain before 2027 arrives. If this trajectory continues, if competitive electoral infrastructure is systematically neutralized before a single vote is cast, Nigeria in 5 years does not look like a country with a flawed democracy. It looks like a country with a managed one. And the difference between those two things is not academic. One can be fixed, the other has to be dismantled. Final question, and I want your honest answer in the comments. If the same institutional tools being used against Peter Obi today were used against Bola Tinubu in 2022, before his APC primary, before his candidacy, would those tools have been called democracy, or would they have been called what they are? Think about that. If this analysis gave you clarity,
Share it with one person who needs to understand what is really happening in Nigeria. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.